agenda. But the vast majority of translations are really good. And so I'm just going to give you 4 suggestions real quick if you want to write them down. The most scholarly translation that is most literal would be the ESV, or the New American Standard Updated Version. The ESV and the New American Standard are 2 tried and true, but the ESV is newer. The next one on the spectrum is the NIV, the one that we use, which is pretty close to literal, but it gives us a lot of the meaning that we need to have and might miss. The next one on the spectrum is the New Living Translation. It's a recent one that's been done and is very accurate to the original text, but also got some more emotional impact. And finally is the Message. Even though it was done by one individual, the guy who did it knows his stuff better than anyone else on the planet right now. His name is Eugene Peterson, and everybody who knows him just knows the guy is an absolute genius. And so it's trustworthy. The guy knows what he's doing. And the stuff that he writes you can compare to the others and double check. I wouldn't rely on only one. I would pick at least 2 and try to find yourself a balance so that you kind of know what's going on. But let's move on. I do. I laugh, yes. Number 2, level number 2. I don't just trust the translation. I also trust the transmission of the text. How it got from the original writers to me. And I'm going to race you through some blanks, so go ahead and write these things down. Just keep it flipping. First of all, we have thousands of ancient manuscripts. Thousands of ancient manuscripts. And the reason that's significant is that the more copies of the original manuscripts you have, the more you can put them all together and try to discover which is the original, or which is the closest to the original. If I had my children and I gave each one of them a message privately, you know, kind of like the telephone game. I gave each one of them a message privately, and you heard one of them share the message. You might miss something. You know, if I said something that was pretty elaborate or complex, you might miss something. But if you heard both of my kids, and if I happened to tell it to 10 different kids, and they all told you, then based on the combination of all 10, you could have a really good idea of what I actually said and what the kids sort of added to it in the transmission process. And because we have thousands of them, go on to the next one. In the New Testament, we have 95% to 98% certainty. The New Testament is 95 to 98% certain. And what I mean by that is that when you look at the the Greek text that we have today, we are 95 to 98% certain that any individual word in the Greek text is exactly the word that the original author wrote down on the first piece of parchment or papyrus or whatever he was writing on. In the Old Testament, it's about 90%. We have about 90% certainty. It's a little less because the document is far older and much less rigorous in terms of its transmission practices, but we still have about 90% certainty. Different scholars will debate these numbers. Some scholars will go as low as 92% for the New Testament, but pretty much everyone agrees that the New Testament is the single most accurate document of all human history. We have more reliability. We can rely more on the text of the New Testament than we have today than any other ancient document, spiritual or otherwise. Lastly, trusting the transmission, no doctrine hinges on any disputed section of the text. Yes, there are still some disputed sections of the Bible today. I'm going to show you a couple of them. But no doctrine hinges on any of those disputed sections. So we're running short on time. We've got to race through this. If you have a Bible, flip to Mark chapter 16. This is the last chapter in Mark. If you're getting comfortable with that Bible, I forgot to get the page number for it, but there's a table of contents in the front that can show you where it is. And so go to the page that Luke starts on and you'll be where we are. So Mark 16, beginning in verse 9, you will notice if you have an NIV or another modern translation, it says this before 9 begins. It says, the earliest manuscripts and some other ancient witnesses do not have Mark 16, 9 through 20. And if you read 16, 9 through 20, we see in verse 9, it says, when Jesus rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene. Oh my goodness! The earliest manuscripts don't have Jesus' resurrection? Is that something we should be scared about? Well, let's read what it actually stopped with. Go back to verse 7. begin in verse 6. There's an angel who is speaking to women at the tomb. He says, "Don't be alarmed," he said. "You're looking for Jesus the Nazarene who was crucified. He has risen. He's not here. See the place where they laid him? But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he's going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you." Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. Mark is a guy who writes fast and just gets it down as fast as he can, and he may have run out of paper. And I'm not joking with you. He may actually have run out of paper because it was very expensive, and he just tried to cram all the stuff in at the end as much as he could, and it ended with the women left scared after the angel told them. And this is the deal. This is the deal. If you end Mark there, your gut says, "Oh, come on, you got to tell someone." And that's exactly what Mark wanted you to feel. Come on. We got to tell someone. We can't be afraid of this stuff. Something amazing has happened. We got to tell someone. But somewhere along the lines, down the road, someone else said, "We can't end it there. We got to fill it out a little bit. So let's add a few more things." And so they add some stuff in there. But not a single thing that's in there is a doctrine that we would say is in dispute. In fact, there's one weird part in there where it says in verse 17, "All these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name they will drive out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up snakes with their hands. And when they drink deadly poison, it will not hurt them at all. They will place their hands on sick people and they will get well." And today we have some churches that actually, I'm not kidding, actually handle snakes and drink poison. Because they think by doing that, they are upholding the text, even though this is the only place where you would ever find something about that. And this stuff already happened. It happened to the Apostle Paul. It happened to some of the early apostles. So we don't have to do it again because it already happened. So what I'm saying is, it's true for the most part. It represents an early tradition, but it's a disputed passage. And you don't have to worry about it. I'll show you one more. John chapter 8. Some of you are going to hate me for this, but it's all right. John chapter 8, right at the top, says the earliest manuscripts and many other ancient witnesses do not have John 7:53 through 8:11. And that is the passage where Jesus has a woman brought to him caught in adultery, and he gets down on the ground and he draws in the dirt, and he said, "The one without sin should cast the first stone." And it's like, oh man, I love that one. Well, yeah, so did other people. That's why it's there. It's been loved for